How often do you get to see your grandparents? Cousins? Aunts and uncles? I was lucky enough to grow up living right next to my extended family. We live in a cul-de-sac, so my relatives lived either right next door or across the street. When I was little, my parents would go run errands and send me over to my grandparents' house. It was basically my second home. There was a 100-pound box TV in the corner, a piano on the other side of the room, multiple couches surrounding a coffee table engraved with a Filipino farm, and of course, a full fridge in the kitchen. Every time I went over, my grandmother cut up half a mango for me and brought me a glass of guava juice. I ate, watched Hannah Montana, and lived my best life. But as the years went by, I became preoccupied with school, friends, and extracurriculars. Going over to my grandparents' house 3 times a week turned into about once a month. But my routine was always the same: mango, guava juice, and Disney Channel. But a couple years ago, we started noticing some changes in how my grandmother acted. She would buy multiple Costco-sized grocery items, even though she had purchased the same product the day before. She would forget about church events, even though she had written them in her calendar. In general, she wasn't herself. So my aunt decided to take her to the doctors, just so they can run some tests. Instead of mango and guava juice, I received news that she had been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. What we often hear about is the disease itself. Inside the brain, neurons relating to memory, thinking, and learning are damaged or destroyed because of a protein interfering with neuron-to-neuron communication. It takes several years of these molecular changes for symptoms to appear. Short-term memory loss begins, and eventually the patient will forget how to even walk or swallow. Alzheimer's is prevalent. In fact, according to the Alzheimer's Association, every 66 seconds, someone develops the disease. So over the course of tonight's event, 180 people would have begun their own journey with Alzheimer's. Although the patient is the one with the disease, there is another group that is part of this journey: the caretakers. But their stories are often overlooked because they have no time to share them. The number of caretakers, often family members, has grown to a tremendous size over the years. According to the Alzheimer's Association, in 2018, 16.3 million family members and friends provided 18.5 billion hours of unpaid care to those with Alzheimer's. My parents, aunts, and uncles have been caretakers for about 3 years now. My dad and his siblings have a group chat dedicated to coordinating their schedules with my grandmother's appointments. About every other day, one of my relatives has to check in with my grandmother just to make sure she knows what's going on for the next few days. The emotional impact of the disease arguably takes a much greater toll than the exhaustive to-do list. It is absolutely heartbreaking to see someone you love change and lose a part of themselves because of the disease. Before the diagnosis, my grandmother led church events and helped my family out with property management. She was independent, hardworking, and treated everyone she met like family. Those traits started to fade away as soon as the disease began dictating our lives. She was losing the ability to do and be the things that made her who she was. Her memories and passions that we thought were forever slipping away. I noticed that the caretakers were losing something too. The disease blurs caretakers' visions. They get caught up with the treatments, medications, and appointments, and don't get to see the bigger picture, the impermanence of memories, and the limits on time that we have with our loved ones. They get lost in the minute details and don't get to spend actual quality time with the person that they're caring for. One day, I was babysitting my 7 and 9-year-old cousins when they asked me, "Do you know about Grandma?" Treading carefully, I asked, "What do you know?" They told me that they knew Grandma was sick and that she was having trouble remembering things, which they were sad about. I never thought that I would be in a position where I'd have to comfort and protect them from the effects of the disease. Alzheimer's does not just impact the patient. It profoundly impacts even the smallest members of the community. The diagnosis is a tragedy, but beauty grew out of it from my family, since we have come together in a way that we hadn't before. The disease has opened my eyes up to 2 things. The time we spend with our loved ones is taken for granted more often than we think, and by extension, memory is more valuable than we think it is. The beauty of hindsight is that moments in our lives become more significant than we thought they were when we were living it. These are the memories that shape us into who we are today. The ability to remember is such a gift that we often don't consider how much value it actually holds. Think about it. Reminiscing about the good old days with a family member or a friend is one of the best feelings. Those memories that we have with the people closest in our lives are the things that keep them in our hearts. And that is why it is so important to be present, actively there when spending time with your loved ones. It is so easy to get caught up with work, school, or even your phone. I can honestly say that I have gotten distracted by a notification and dedicated my time toward something as trivial as a text, instead of spending time with my family, listening to them tell stories, or give each other life advice. Rather than making true connections with the people around me, I spent time on something that I wouldn't remember in the next few days. True lifelong memories that shape our life stories emerge when we meaningfully and purposefully spend time with the people around us. Take a step back from life and reflect. Which people have helped you become who you are today? What was the impact that they had on you? We need to be present in order to fully appreciate the moments that shape us, giving us a better perspective on life. I personally think about the time my grandmother told me about how she grew up in the Philippines. That was when I realized that she had passed down her passion of helping her family to me. She might not remember telling me that story, and she might not remember telling me the next one, but that memory and that story will live on forever through my words. We often forget how little time we have with our loved ones, which is something that can change how we see our relationship with them. So live life in the moment with them. That mango memory that I shared earlier, as small as it may be, it is something that I carry with me, a piece of her that will always be in my heart. Cherish the time you get to spend with them. Memory is a gift, and the best way to give back is to be present. Thank you.